I'm Jason Cook. With over 20 years of experience as a professional trainer, coach, and clinician in the equine industry, I've had the privilege of dedicating thousands of hours to perfecting my craft. Now I'm excited to share my expertise with you through this podcast. We will explore some of my past experiences as well as those of other individuals to provide you with a wealth of knowledge and insights to enhance your journey. Whether you are a novice or an experienced horseman, this podcast will offer valuable perspectives to help you achieve success. Scott, you live over, it's close to Reed Springs, you said?
Yeah,
Missouri?
I live about halfway between Reed Springs and Galena, Missouri. About 40 miles south of Springfield, about 20 miles west of Branson.
Yeah, and you've lived here pretty much all your life, right?
I've managed to move a quarter mile in my entire life.
That's not much. Yeah, and so I met Scott. We've known each other now for how long has it been?
I think the first time I called you would have probably been in 21 was the first time we had a conversation. I've been working with you basically Thanksgiving time will be 1 year.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't remember exactly when I first started riding. I guess it would be the sorrel mare, right?
Yeah, the little Rita mare.
Yeah, Rita mare. Yeah. So Scott's been in the horse industry. He told me yesterday since you were 4.
I can never remember not having a horse, but my first memories, I had a little pony named Champ, and I can remember pulling around, kicking around, sitting around on him when I was 4.
Yeah. And so and in the beginning, we'll go back to the beginning. So you were raised over around right where you're at now, around Reed Springs. So what was it like in your childhood, and kind of start there? Let's walk through it.
Childhood growing up I thought was normal. As I'm getting older, I'm finding out it wasn't quite what everybody else did. We grew up there on the farm. We had a few head of cattle. We had a few horses running around. But all I knew was to go to work. I mean, we spent every Saturday hauling hay, cutting wood. Dad was in the construction industry, going to job sites. There was never, we would have pee-wee basketball practice, and we'd have to go cut a couple rick of wood before we could make it to 10 o'clock basketball practice, and then we would deliver that after practice. So it was just, I grew up in a family that we didn't rest a lot, we just worked a lot.
Right. And in high school, in school, sports?
I played a little bit of football.
Okay.
I played a little bit of basketball. I never played any baseball. I ran a little track, and that was more in the junior high time frame. By the time I got to high school, I quit growing, so I wasn't going to be that big football player. So I just dinked with my horses more than anything. Mm-hmm. We went to a lot of local shows, little show-to-yo circuits, ran a lot of barrels, a lot of poles, a lot of just all those little... Reed Springs had a saddle club we went and rode at, and a show-to-yo one night, then we'd go cattle pen another night.
Yeah. Cattle penning was probably pretty big back then.
Yeah. We did a lot of cattle penning. And then we would ride there at, like I said, Reed Springs, Hurley, Highlandville. Every little town used to have a saddle club.
Mm-hmm. It did. And so when you said is this a family deal or?
Yeah. So I say we, my parents, looking back, I didn't realize at the time how much they sacrificed to take me up and down the road to play. Uh-huh. But we were someplace riding a horse every weekend. Uh-huh. And so, Mom and Dad took me. Mom and Dad didn't ride. My sister rode for a little bit, but they just kind of supported my habit.
Yeah. And so you get out of high school. Did you go to college?
I did not go to college.
You didn't. So what'd you start doing there?
Well, so I left high school. I did leave with a diploma. but I left a little early, and I went straight into the ceramic tile business. And so I was installing tile with my dad. That was kind of what his career was. So I was installing tile with Dad, and done that for a couple years. And I had accumulated a few horses, and I took all my horses to Shawnee, Oklahoma, and sold them. And I bought a business in Springfield. My father and I did. And we started selling tile as opposed to installing it at that time.
Okay. So that's when you went more over into the merchant side of just selling it, and you didn't go around and do as much job, but you still did install tile some, didn't you?
But yeah, a little. I mean, it was one of those things. At that time, I was getting started. I still remember it was started the business in June of 2001. And September is the trade centers got hit.
Yes.
And so a lot of uncertainty hit, and I just remember just working a lot. I mean, we done crazy things. We didn't have the ability at that time to purchase a lot because we didn't have a lot of people consuming material, and two, we didn't have a lot of money to purchase material with. So we couldn't buy. I was working with factories, and so I couldn't buy truckloads factory direct. So we would either take trailers or we would rent trucks, and I would leave Springfield at like 5 o'clock in the evening, and I would drive to Clarksville, Tennessee, and wait in line in a box truck for them to open the factory to let me load 4 or 5 pallets of tile. And then, so I'd sleep in that truck, and then they'd get me loaded up, and then I would come home the next morning, about an 8-hour trip over there and back, so 16 hours round trip. And we just slowly built from that. Tulsa, Oklahoma at that time had a little tile factory I could work out of. And so I would, again, kind of the same story. Tulsa was a lot easier because I could make that trip in a day, but a typical week of starting that tile store was 80 to 100 hours a week.
That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
That's what the dream looks like.
That's what the dream looks like. I hear people all the time say, "Well, how do you get ahead? How do you do this? How do you do that?" Well, I figured it up. You put in about 45 years in 21.
Yeah, you do more than everybody else is willing to do.
And it's I think for most people who I'll call entrepreneurs, they have a vision and a dream that they're going to do it better than what everyone else is doing it. And so if everybody done it the same way, there wouldn't be different levels of service that we expect.
Okay.
And so I just, and it took a lot of hours to do it bigger and better than everybody else around.
And you're definitely a proponent of basically not quantity but quality.
Yeah, one of my quality over quantity is definitely I don't know how to really answer that, but yeah, I mean, for my point of view, it's always going to be, I always look at the quality side of things. I don't want to do anything that I don't feel I can do with the best of my ability. But I also believe that there has to be some production done.
Yes, some volume.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're in the tile business until you pretty much retired from that. And so also you had, so when did because you've mentioned to me before about your kind of the fitness things you've done, whether it be the biking or whatever, the swimming, competing and everything. So when did that come on? What sparked that, and when did that start?
To be honest with you, I've always kind of struggled with a weight issue. I've always been a heavier person. And so in 2008, my mother had a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting there with her cardiologist, and her cardiologist is telling her, going through, all the different things, it kind of looks like you're more genetically prone to it as opposed to diet and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked me square in the face and says, and if you're not careful, you're going to be in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that time, I started trying to figure out, at that time I weighed about 245 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
Which is not very heavy if you're 6'10". But I missed the mark.
You're not 6'10".
I'm not 6'10". And so I took that to heart, and I started, I'm always the person, I could find an hour a day I could commit to exercise.
Yes.
And so that's when my schedule and the way everything was going, I could find an hour a day. So I started running,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the biggest bang for your buck. For me,
Mm-hmm.
If I could go out and put together an hour's worth of run, I could burn a lot of calories in an hour that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so over about a year, I got down to 148 pounds. So
And this is late 20s, is that right? 2008, you said?
yeah, so I would have been 30 years old.
30 years old. Okay.
No, yeah, 30 years old. 30-ish.
Okay.
I guess I'd have been. I'm born in 79.
Yeah. So you're 2 years old, younger than me.
So
Yeah. Okay. And so that's kind of what sparked it and motivated you. And you started with the running.
I started with the running, and then I'd go run the 5K, and I'm always looking for that next level.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you set a goal, when you reach it, you got to set another goal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty goal oriented that way. So I ran a 5K. Well, then obviously the next thing to do is run a 10K.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing to do is run you a half marathon. And
Mm-hmm.
then you start doing a few little sprint triathlons. So you start biking and swimming, and before you end up, now I need to run a marathon. And then you get really crazy and you need to do an ultra marathon trail run. And so it just slowly progressed that way. I was not, again, going back to the whole setting the goal and only giving it a certain amount of time. I wasn't good at cross training.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ultimately leads to other issues.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, I was so concerned about the weight loss and keeping the weight off. And the only way I knew to do that was that these are not healthy things. This is, I would take in less than 1,800 calories a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to where I would run a minimum of 8 miles a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be, and this was every day. So I'd run 8 miles every day, 8 to 10. And so I'm sitting there at that level. You're taking in 1,800 calories. A mile is worth about 125 calories. So I'm sitting there burning off almost 1,000 calories of what I was taking in.
Just in running.
Just in running.
Yeah.
And my day off, because you got to have a easy day, I would go out and do a 3-mile run, and then I would ride my bicycle from Springfield to Rogersville and back. Mm-hmm. And that was my easy day, my off day. Mm-hmm. But I was so caught up in keeping the weight off that I was doing horrible things to my body.
Mm-hmm. So when did you I want you to tell people about your biking experience across to Iowa.
Okay.
Because I heard from you one day, you told me you had to go to the doctor and you mentioned something about your foot.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's wrong with your foot? And so you you enlightened me on what you had done on a bike, and I'm like, well, how did you do that? So tell us a little bit about that.
So, everything I do, like I said, I have to move the bar. I can't just do it the good old-fashioned way. So, as opposed to riding my Trek 5600, whatever it is, carbon fiber bike across the state of Iowa, I had decided that I was going to ride an antique penny farthing across the state of Iowa, which is this particular one was a 52-inch front tire and a 10-inch back tire. And
so it looks like something out of an old movie.
Oh, it absolutely. My bike, I still have it. I still got it. It's like that trophy that you don't.
It needs to be in a museum.
Yeah, it's I believe it's an 1883. It's an 1883 Victor high wheel roadster. Mm-hmm. And everyone asks you where you can get those. You can get them online. Uh-huh. Or I've got one that I can help you out with.
Yeah. That has a story.
But so as I was training to ride across Iowa, I'm a little competitive. And so now mind you, we got no brakes. We got no gears. It's just for every rotation you get your feet around, you get 52 inches of tire to rotate around. That's your gear. And your brakes, you can hop back onto a little peg that you use to get up onto it, and then you drag your foot on the small rear tire, which can, at 30 mile an hour downhill, can get a little sketchy.
Yeah.
Had a few wrecks. That thing gave me, I got... my sister sewed me up one night. It took 11 stitches to sew up the back of my leg where I hooked myself real good in it. But anyway, I would, being competitive, I would be going downhill, and you make yourself as big as you can to make yourself a sail to kind of get some wind resistance on that thing. And everybody would just zip by you. Well, I'm competitive, and so my goal would be to pass those people going up the other side. Mm-hmm. And so I just put a bunch of torque and tension in my feet, and I done some muscle damage, and then I didn't do a good job of rehabbing that, and that muscle damage became long-term nerve damage, and so I've ended up having to have a little foot surgery that it still bothers me every day, but it's tolerable. I get through, and I'm kind of limited to steps now. I can only go, I don't know, we'll call it 10,000 steps, and I can do that running, skipping, jogging, but when I hit that threshold, I've reached it.
You're done.
Yeah.
So you went across the state of Iowa?
I did.
Yeah.
I made it. And now this was post-injury. I made it across Iowa post-injury, and I can tell you that those little Presbyterian churches have pie every 4 miles. And whenever you ride bicycles across the state of Iowa, it's an event called Ragbri. And typically they break it up. It takes a week to get you across, and you dip your tire in the Missouri River on one side, and then you ride across and dip your tire in the Mississippi on the other side. But and the route changes every year. It can be northern Iowa, southern Iowa. That particular year, it was southern Iowa. And everybody thinks Iowa is flat. Well, that is not correct.
Not true.
That's not true. What makes it interesting is you either are going uphill or downhill in Iowa, in southern Iowa. Around home, and I live in southwest Missouri, and we have hills, but you'll get in the bottom and you'll ride through the bottom.
Yes.
And then you climb a hill and you get on top and you ride out across the ridge. Well, up there, you're either up or you're down. There's no bottoms to ride through and no ridges to ride on.
Right.
But
well, that's interesting. I don't think many people can say they've rode across the state of Iowa.
Yeah. Oh, there's about 20,000 a year that do it.
That's it.
Yeah.
I would like to go ride the Katy Trail, a portion of the Katy Trail sometime, and I visited with a buddy of mine about doing that. And I don't bike a lot, but I think that would be pretty neat. It looks like there's a lot of small towns around that also.
Yeah, and basically when you'd pull out of one little town up there, you just start looking for a water tower, and that's where you were headed next.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, you'd see that water tower off in the distance, and that's basically where your next stop was going to be.
Okay. So you've been into fitness, and you're 30. You've always had horses. So let's go into the horse part now. Okay. When did you get active in the showing past play days? You know, getting competitive showing, kind of at a little different level and stuff. When did that take place? And kind of walk me through that, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of insight that you can. Hopefully, people can draw. I would like to interview several non-pros and amateurs, because I want to hear about their journey and their steps through it, so that new people getting in the industry might get some nuggets from it, or some tips, or some pointers, some things they would have done different. You know, things they wouldn't have done, and things like that. So when did that start?
So what kind of spurred it on is my daughter and I. It was 13 years of age, and we had nothing in common. She liked to read. She liked to write. She likes fantasy movies like Lord of the Rings and those types of things. And so we just really had nothing that we could connect with. But we could kind of connect with horses. So we decided that we were going to start trail riding, and this would have been in 2018.
Okay.
We were going to start trail riding. Now, I hadn't really rode a horse since, go back to the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, I hadn't ridden. We had some that we kept on the farm. My wife gave me a hard time, called the lead and feed ranch, because that's all we done is we let them around and fed them. Took them to the vet because they're horses.
Yeah.
But my daughter and I were just trying to find something that we could connect with together. And so we had a couple of horses there that they had 60 days of training on them. So in my mind, these are some broke animals. They had been ridden consistently for 60 days, both of them. And so we set out to start trail riding. And we rode for a few months, no problems, and I got her hurt. The little horse kind of done something, ran backwards, fell back on her. Fortunately, it was nothing major, broke her arm, broke her wrist. And so we set out to find her a broke horse. And we came across Chewy. And that was probably not a wise purchase for the time, but he was broker than anything I had ever seen in my life. I mean, he could go forward, he could go backwards, he could side pass, he'd go left, right. He had multiple. He walk, trot, canter. He could extend the walk, extend the trot. So I'm like, wow, I have never seen anything this broke. I mean, I thought I had really found a unique animal. And so we purchased Chewy and bring him home, and we start discovering that Chewy has a little bit of talent to him. He can do these different things. And so I go and I buy another horse that is broker than what I'm on, and start riding her, a big gray mare named Lady. And that's when Jordan and I started. We were trail riding these horses, and we're like, these horses have more buttons than we know how to push. And so we ended up going and started taking lessons. So I am 39 years old, and I am taking my first horseback riding lesson. So then at that time, the gray mare, she just wasn't talented enough for me. And so I bought this little dun mare that I still ride now, Teeny. And she was a 2-year-old, and but my goal still, a few riding lessons and a few trail rides, and that was kind of the plan. But then it just kept moving forward and moving forward. The bar got moved, the finish line got moved, as you like to say. And so then Jordan and I start getting more serious about our lessons. We get more and more serious about our riding, and we're finally figuring out that, hey, we can move the shoulder, we can move the hip, we can move the ribs, we can move the neck, we can move the face. And so the gentleman I'm taking lessons from at that time, he's like, well, why don't you try some of these ranch shows? Well, now we're right in my wheelhouse because I love competition. From the running and everything, you could always expand, you can always improve. You can, if you can run a 10K in 30 minutes, well, next time let's try to run it in 28 minutes. Well, so the same kind of thing is with the horses. I mean, you start out and you go to your first show and you learn. You don't even know what a scorecard looks like, and
don't even know what a lead is.
No, you don't know what a lead is, much less getting them to depart on it. But at the end of the day, that little bay gelding gave me at least 6 hours a week with my daughter. And her and I got to hang out and learn together and do something together. And then it just kept growing. She's now riding for the ranch horse team at University of Arkansas. She finally gave Chewy up and let me start riding him. And so that's kind of how it started. It all started around just trying to figure out how to spend time with my daughter.
And so the relationship with your daughter, that's what sparked it. So once you've got into it, and now she's kind of headed her way because she's at the U of A, and then I met up with you, we'll just say a year ago, Thanksgiving or whatever it was, and so coming into this, I mean, you've been on a journey now from, you said 2018 or 19.
That's when we started kind of the trail riding. My first year, so our plan was to kind of go and start showing. I think I hit maybe 1 or 2 shows late 2019.
Right before the world fell apart.
Yeah. And so then, but the plan was we were going to really start showing in the spring of 20. That just kind of everything was falling in place. That was going to be my little teeny mare was coming along and was pretty sharp. She did a real nice trail pattern. We could do a nice ranch ride on her. She would buck the small, slow, in a reining pattern.
Yeah,
it was awesome. So coming into 2020, then we were going to hit a little Ozark AQHA horse show, and it canceled because of COVID coming. And then we were going to do the Heart of America Buckskin Association, and that all shut down because of COVID.
Yes.
And so I think that was going to be March, April, May. I think about June, they're like, okay, we can start doing a few shows, but you're not going to drag the log, and you're not going to open the gate because those are points of contact, and you're going to wear a mask in the barn, and you're going to all that kind of fun stuff. But we started going, and it was then, so that was June, July, maybe hit 2 or 3 shows. And then in August, I had that foot surgery.
Yes.
And that shut me down. So 2020 was basically kind of a bust of a year.
Yes.
And then come out in 2021, we were hitting those. Southwest Missouri is a great area for the ranch horse thing.
Yes.
We have Ava has a little ranch horse series. Urbana has a little ranch horse series.
Carthage,
Aurora,
and Benton County. Across the state line.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I could technically go to a ranch horse show three weekends a month, easy. I'd be divorced, but I could hit 3 or 4 shows a month that way. But that year, got a little more serious about it. 21, managed to go up to, for some reason that year, Urbana was my world show. I mean, that was my focus, was to go to that local show, and I managed that year. I won their High Point novice with my little horse, and Jordan won her. She won the youth category that year. So that would have been our first ranch horse buckles.
Right.
For High Point for year end. And then 22, just kind of more of the same. We got a little bit more serious about trying to add cattle to the program. A lot of those little local shows don't have cattle.
Right.
You've got, so then started trying to add the cattle to it and trying to figure out how to read a cow.
Yeah.
That's, and now I've trying to figure out how to control the energy that you put into your horse, that your horse puts into the cow. That's a whole other deal.
Yeah.
But then, like 22, started adding cattle, getting more aggressive with reining. And then, so when I start breaking it down, it doesn't sound like that long ago. It hasn't been that long a journey.
Right. And there's a lot of people coming into the industry right now still. I mean, I think due to Hollywood and everything, there's still tons of people coming in fresh, wanting to get into the ranch horse stuff. All the ranch horse versatility, all the way from just doing the ranch boxing to the ranch reining to the ranch trail, ranch riding, ranch pleasure. I mean, there's a working ranch horse where you do portions of the cow horse type stuff, but then you rope and stop him at the end instead of circle him. There's all kinds of stuff. So with all these people coming in, and you're fairly new to it, and I'm sure through you being a businessman and a competitive person in the sports world too, and your bike riding and your running and all that. So, I mean, what's some stuff that you've picked up and learned, and some stuff that you could, maybe give some nuggets to others coming in the industry, what to expect, how to come in and enter in the industry, and what you need to do, because you're the typical amateur non-pro that comes in.
The first thing that I would say for someone who's wanting to come in, I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I would have been willing to have made the investments on some horses that could have taught me more. My daughter was on a 3-year-old horse that had never gone down the road, never been to a show. My little teeny mare was a 2-year-old when I bought her, and so we grew together and we learned together. But I think my journey could have been a little less painful if I would have known how little I knew. I grew up with horses. I thought I knew horses, and the more I'm around them, the more I realize I don't know. Find somebody that will encourage you to work with you and coach you. I see a lot of, one thing I see really interesting, I have started out at the novice level, and I worked my way, I'll say pointed out of the novice level for the most part. And so I ride the limited amateur classes for the most part. And what I've noticed is whenever I was riding novice level, there'd be 20, 25 in my class.
Yes.
As I've moved up, I've noticed that my class has gotten smaller. And so I just, and I just don't see the people around the pen anymore. So I think it just comes down to they've gotten discouraged because, it's fun for a while to not win, but at some point you want a ribbon, or you want a bucket, or you want something to kind of encourage you along your way. And it just takes surrounding yourself with people that can give you that direction and that encouragement and tell you to sit back, pull your shoulders back, and be somewhat thick-skinned with it.
Mm-hmm. So, and how would you compare, you were in the, so when you ran and when you competed in the cycling and things, it's pretty much just up to you.
Yes.
It's up to you. And now you have something you have to compete in and you have a partner.
Yes.
And they don't speak English. And so what are some parallels? Because what I see is a lot of people who are very good at competition when it's up to them, say a boxer or martial artist or a basketball player. Well, probably a little less on basketball because you do have the team also. But where it's more of a one-on-one deal, it's up to you. If you don't do it, it's totally up to you. The weight is on your shoulders more. And then when you get on a team, you have, say, basketball, you got 4 other people. And then football team and so forth. Well, now you have horses, and now you have a teammate, but that teammate it's not a human. And so that presents a whole different set of challenges. So if you want to talk about that and your journey through that part a little bit.
My little mare that I ride most of the time, had her since, like I said, she was a late 2-year-old. I bought her in October of her 2-year-old year. Mm-hmm. I ride that little mare probably at least 4 days a week. At least 4 days a week. Most of the time 5 or 6. But it is you learn to communicate. I mean, and you can tell when that horse isn't quite right. You can tell if I was riding here earlier today and rode her into the pen, and she's gone into arenas all over Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, and she was just a little fresh today, whenever we entered the pen, and trying to. That's probably one of the biggest struggles that I've had with my journey with the horse is there's so many different levels. There's people who get on horses and just they're naturally good riders. But what is really challenging with the horse and where I find myself at in my journey is I'm wanting to understand their mind more. Mm-hmm. I mean, why there's a TP over there in that arena set up right now? Mm-hmm. Why do they bow at that? What is it that makes that different than any other orange cone that they've ever seen? Okay, so this is 4 foot high and not 18 inches high. Mm-hmm. Same shape, same colors, but why do they bow at that? Why is the flicker on the ground a distraction? Mm-hmm. And it's just.
And how do you deal with it?
And how do you deal with it?
That's another big thing.
Yeah, and so I guess I've got so many holes in me still. I'm not a good showman. I'm not a good horseman. I feel I'm improving, but that's part of it. You talk about the competition side of it or the competitive side of it. Well, it's just allowing me to set new goals. Mm-hmm. Better understand my horse, better understand how to sit my horse, better understand how to sell a presentation. There's so many little goals that can be set along the way that I don't think there's a horseman out there that doesn't change the goal.
No.
And they keep moving forward and looking at so I don't think it's possible, but you have maxed out the ability of the horse, but how can you maximize your horsemanship? I don't think you can ever reach that level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a journey that you never arrive at.
Yeah.
For me anyway. I
think, and but it allows you to keep that goal. Once you accomplish, you finally learn how to sit one at a stop, which I have not done yet. You finally learn how to get one you get enough of them under you that you learn how to sit the stop. Well, now, how do you even make that softer? How do you get that horse to cue with less? How do you think it and they do it? How how do you target in on that process?
And like you're elaborating on, there's a lot more to it than, that's seen. You know, that horse earlier that the lady was having trouble turning it, spinning it. You know, and I can get on. I know exactly what needs to be done. I know the horse knows me. I turn it around a few times, she gets back on, it turns. But there's a communication barrier there, and there's feel. And you can't get feel without just doing it more. There's no way. I can coach you from the ground, and that will help. But you have to get on there and feel it and try to say, how am I going to get this horse talked into doing this?
And I've not got a lot of horses, but I can tell you that I get on Chewy and I feel something different, and then I can kind of take that feel over to Teeny, and I'm like, okay. So if I do this and this, I get the same feel. And, my daughter's graduated up to her next level horse, and then there's some opportunities to ride some other horses. And so every one of those horses, there is something that every horse can offer you, good or bad. You know, Chewy, I wish I could figure out the feel of his extended trot and apply it to every horse I get on. But on the flip side, I wish that I could figure out how to put Chewy in a pen, and in 15 minutes he's relaxed to it and ready to go to work.
So what can you elaborate on? You know, so what can someone take away? John Smith comes up to you and says, hey, I see you're doing the ranch horse shows and you're into horses. How long have you been doing it? And you say, in the showing deal, 6, 8 years, whatever it is. It says, well, I want to get started in it. What do I need to do? What do I need to look for? And, all the way from pedigrees to where to start, and how that does make a difference. Not all the time, but it does make a difference. And then you've got tack. You've got where to go start showing at, who to work with, what kind of horse to buy, clothing, as we laugh about.
Yes.
My wife's kind of a fickler about your presentation in the pen. She dresses all of us.
Yeah, I have to send her pictures of shirts I want to buy before I can purchase them.
Yeah, and chinks that yay or nay.
No, we're not doing chinks anymore. That's
chinks
out.
anymore. Yeah, that's out. No bat wings.
But they're coming back.
They're coming back. But there's so many facets of it. So, and I don't know if you've had people approach you about it and says, well, I'm interested in this. What would I need to do and how do I need to do it? And then also, we see a lot how people generally are going to try it and how they go the long way. And then and they struggle really bad. And a lot of them will struggle and quit because, like you said, you have to get your name called sometimes. You don't have to win all the time, but you sure don't want to just every time go out there and get a 0,
I get asked a lot about how to get their children into it because my daughter came up into it. And I think it would apply for a 40-year-old adult the same, because if I was just went to the show and I'm like, I want to get started in that, I think if I had it, my advice would be is go buy yourself 10 lessons.
Okay. Don't buy a horse. Just
don't buy a horse. Don't buy a horse. Don't buy any tack. Don't just call up Jason Cook or Jennifer or whoever.
Yeah.
Go buy 10 lessons and see if you're still as on fire at lesson number 9 as you were. If you are still 15 minutes early to get to your lesson and you're wanting to stay 20 minutes late and comb that horse off and hose him off and you're still on fire, then I think is time to start moving on. And but I think I can tell you that it can be really discouraging because just I say all the time, well, I'm doing exactly what you're telling me to do, and I'm not getting the result. But I'm not. I mean, I'm missing something. But that would be my big thing is just expose yourself to it a little bit to make sure that that's the road you want to go down. Because I know what it costs to do it even at a local level. And, when my daughter and I were both showing together before she went to school and we were just going locally, But between entry fees and lessons and, we're not even going to throw tack into that, but then to feed these animals. And I was having to budget almost $1,500 a month for the two of us. So, I mean, you're talking a new truck or, in some cases, a mortgage. So it's you've got to be committed to it, because there's nothing more frustrating than to have you a horse sitting in the lot that you're just leading and feeding, because they still need vets, they still need groceries,
shoes.
They got to have shoes. I mean,
would you say the cheapest purchase is the purchase of the horse?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't even want to put if my wife listens to this, we
can edit.
Yeah, the horse is the cheapest portion of the purchase, because somewhere along the way, if you're going to improve, you're going to have to get with someone to help you, that's going to teach you to improve.
Yes. Would you elaborate a little bit on that? Because we have a lot of people that, and look, we all do it, but they, versus going and getting one-on-one help, they tend to gravitate towards the tube or YouTube or something like that. Would you, from an amateur perspective, kind of elaborate on what might be missed in that, and what might be gained, but what might be missed in that, and where it might get you a little bit frustrated?
I love to watch some good YouTube videos of Fapani or Chris Dawson, and watch them take their horses around. And even I listen to that Matt Mills. He does a little podcast, not podcast, but a little YouTube series on how to soften your horse and do those types of things, and that's good. And yes, you can learn from that. But what I find with myself is I can't necessarily, even though I can see that, I can't duplicate it. And your horse will tell on you. You can be riding around the pen, loping a circle, and these good coaches can tell you what you're doing with your offside leg that they can't see just by the way your horse is responding to what you're doing. And so for you to get those corrections made and understand a better feel of your horse, you just need that one-on-one coaching that can see that. And I like clinics. I like to go to clinics. I've been to a few. I always leave with something. It may line up with the program I'm on. It may not, but good or bad, you learn from it. I got to go to one that was hosted by the 4-6s. A great clinic, but one of the things is as you move up through there, all of a sudden I went to a couple of them, and I had the brokest horse there. There wasn't a whole lot they could really focus on for me. Now, with that, there was still tons that came out of it. Sometimes just hearing different words. It may be the same. It may be exactly the same thing that you've been telling me for 3 months. But all of a sudden, Joe says, "Why don't you tuck your elbow in while you try it?" And all of a sudden, it's magic. But it just took a little different voice saying it that changed it. And so I find value in going to clinics. Sometimes you just see things that are, well, we're not going to do that because that definitely doesn't align with my thinking. Your barn is different than a lot of barns because you can go and sit down with you and work on your horse relationship and your horsemanship. And, okay, why is his shoulder in? Why is his shoulder out? Why is he leading with his hip like that? And we can work through those things. And then you can show up another day and Carrie can lecture you about sitting back and being more presentable, painting a better picture. I haven't been doing this that long, but it is amazing to me how much it's changed just since from, we'll say 2000 to 24. So in a 4-year span, I've seen the prices of the horse that is going around out here increase 3 times. I've seen the level of competition get 3 times harder. I just was at the Stock Horse at Texas show with my daughter, And it wasn't long ago, if you could go out and ride and you could score a 70 across the board, you were probably going to come home with an award of some sort. You'd make the top 10.
Yes.
My daughter went out on round 2, and I think it was a 73.5 her average score, and didn't even make the top 10. I mean, so these horses
That's tough.
It's getting tougher. And now she is in the limited non-pro division, so it's not. It's a step up. You know, the cow work is greater, the trail work is harder, but that average score is moved. If you could, and so you've got to. It's like anything. If you're going to be a successful runner, you're going to have to put in the time. You're going to have to go out and you're going to have to put in the miles. You're going to have to put in your time in the gym. You're going to have to, I mean, those are all the bits and pieces that if you're going to be a successful ranch rider, that's probably, I don't like the term ranch rider because that's a class. So,
yes, it is. Yeah. But be competitive at the ranch horse shows.
Be competitive.
And there's a lot of versatility in there.
Yes.
So much versatility.
If you're going to be competitive at the ranch horse shows, you're going to have to dedicate the time. When I started, I was trying to learn my horse. She was green. I mean, she was 3-year-old at the time. I would go and take 3-4 lessons a week. I'd still like to get in a couple a week, but life happens and things change. But you're going to have to ride at home. I found, like I said, I've dealt with my weight. I found that I had gotten back up to 230 pounds, and so I started eating better and started exercising, started working on my core, knock off a few pounds.
Because it helps your riding.
It absolutely helps my riding.
Makes a difference.
And so, I mean, those are, and I'm a limited non-pro rider, and these are things that I'm doing to improve so that I can do better and set my next goal.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about something that I don't know how much you done before you came to me, but I know you learned a little bit about it now. But talk about the word schooling.
So schooling is harder than showing.
Yes.
Because for some reason it seems wrong to pay an entry fee and go out and
purposefully get a 0 or a
and
DQ.
Purposely DQ.
Yeah.
Not something that we did before.
Will you talk a little bit about why it has to be done from what your perspective and what you've learned? Because a lot of amateurs and non-pros are kind of like maybe what you just said there, reiterated. They're a little confused on why it has to be done.
So what I'm riding 2 horses right now. Chewy and Teeny. And they both in their younger career, their entry into showing. Teeny went every week. Chewy went every week. We went somewhere every week and showed. And so you would go in and we used this phrase earlier today. Part of showing is being a magician. And it's just going out there and trying to put on a magic show. Yeah. And so there's a lot of stuff you just let your horse do. They get a little bright coming off the corner in a ranch ride pattern. Their ears perk up and their stride picks up a little bit. Well, you're going to deal with that.
Yeah.
Until you take the time to school them and pull them back and slow them down.
Hold them accountable.
And
if you don't, so what happens in that corner there? What can possibly happen? Say that was an extended trot around the corner.
Well, you come around that corner and everything brightens up, and all of a sudden you break gate. Now you're dealing with penalties, and so you're no longer competitive.
Right.
Over a break of gate. You just, I think it's 2 points now.
Yeah.
You just lost 2 points. And, we're just talking about how the average is already moved up. So at the end of the day, 2 points puts you in third place or 15th place.
Yeah, and you can't really afford penalties as much now. We're to the fact that we need 0 penalties and we need to find what we can plus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you go out on a trail pattern and tink 3 logs, you're done. Your day is, your trail pattern's over. But, my biggest thing that I've been dealing with, and I'm going to use Chewy as an example because I think that's the best one to kind of talk through schooling on. You go out and you enter the pen, and Chewy, his head comes up, his ears go forward, and you've lost him. You don't have any focus. He's not listening to you any longer. And so that's where the schooling comes in. I think we've taken him. We probably need more, but we are just now getting him to where you walk in the pen, and so we'll walk through that a little bit. You enter the pen, and we're going to do a reining pattern, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's just wanting to run off with you. And so it is taking a hold of him and saying, come back to me, listen to me, come back to me. And then when you get him right, you drop him and let him go and see if he stays accountable to you. And if he runs off, you pick him up and you put him back to you. You get his mind, drop your hand, let him go, and you work your way through your pattern that way. Always taking the time to, if he does right, let him go. If he does wrong, hold him accountable. But it has taken, this may be our 5th show, plus daily work at home of just getting him to say, oh, yeah, I'm not going to run off in this rundown. Oh, I'm going to stay on these circles and stay under your hand.
Yep. And it's the 5th show, but then we also look at how many shows did he run through the hand, but still was manageable enough. Or how many shows did he lean on the circles real bad, but we got through it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do that, and then we actually have success. And that really sets us up for, we're like, well, crap, I won.
Yeah.
Well, I go back and fix it.
Well, Chewy, you go back 6 months ago whenever I started riding him. I had him maybe a month, and we load him up and take him to that little world show.
Yeah.
And he goes out and he's competitive. But let me tell you.
Well, the first day, what was that like?
Oh, my. The first day.
Well, first, you didn't even want to take him to the world show.
No, I didn't.
You were like, oh, I'm taking Teeny. Should I even take him?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I like him. So I think we should take him. And so you took both down there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that might have been one of your biggest achievements so far. That whole deal as a picture.
As a picture, yeah.
The whole thing. So talk about the first day in the Mustang.
Oh, so we unload and we saddle up. We're going to go ride around, just show them the sights. Let them.
Fortunately, it's 2 or 3 days before, right?
Yeah. I think it's 3 days beforehand. And we're going to go just show them the sights and ride them around these pins and let them introduce them to the Jumbotron and introduce them to
water trucks
and pigeons standing on the ground. I mean, and I walk into the Mustang arena, and this little horse's head, I could part his ears and use them as rifle sights.
Yeah. He looked like a llama.
And we are in a constant bow. His ribs are to the inside. His nose is at the fence. And we are doing all of this at whatever extended gait I will allow him into, whether it's an extended walk or an extended trot, but there are no collected gaits. And we rode that horse. I have never been so sore from riding.
Yeah, and I remember you looked over. I watched you ride him. I was sitting up in a chair, and you come over and said, "Well, how you getting along?" And I knew how you was getting along. He's like, he's terrible. There's no way we're going to get him shown.
Yeah.
This is terrible. He said that water truck went in that other arena out the end, and he's just focused on it. And what do? Now he's scared to even go down there. and everything. And I think it got approached a little different than what you were accustomed to.
It did, because my thought was, well, we're just going to have to ride it out of him. We're just going to have to get on him, and we're going to lope circles until he is too tired to move forward. I mean, to where we're going to have him so tired that he ain't going to do anything unless he's told to do it, not asked to do it.
Right.
We're gonna wear him down to where he does what he is told to do. And if you haven't met Chewy, there's not that finish line don't exist.
Yeah.
It is. He's the same tomorrow morning as he was at 6:00 tonight when you put him up.
Yes.
There is no.
You're not going to wear him out.
No. And so it just. So we just started changing directions.
Yes.
Anytime he lost his focus,
You redirected his mind.
we just changed his feet.
A lot of people might see it as changing directions. Some people might say it's changing his feet, and both those are correct. But what happened was we redirected his mind over here.
Yeah. So if you were loping toward a gate and his head got high and he got focused on that gate, you just took at least a 90-degree turn, maybe a 180-degree turn, and you just went a different direction.
And let them go and see where they go.
Yeah. And put your hand down, and then whenever they leave you again, you get going kind of back to that schooling. You just pick him up, redirect him, put your hand down, and see where he takes you. And that went on for a few days.
Yeah.
But, and like you said, then all of a sudden you go out, and we go out and put him in the reining, and we come home with a reserve buckle. And I'm like, hang on a minute.
How'd that happen? Yeah.
Because I was on him. I felt how he bowed in the corners, and I felt how he was.
Yeah.
He'd leave on the corners looking for a rundown. You know, I could feel, but we were selling it.
Yeah.
And then day 2 rolls around, and I think the next class was ranch ride. And son of a gun, he goes out there and puts on his performance, and we leave with a world champion buckle. And then ranchmanship, and the same thing happens. And then
You're like, what? I wasn't even going to bring this horse.
I wasn't even going to bring this horse. And
the first day, I was really regretting even bringing him. How did you talk me into it?
Yeah. And you know, at the end of the show, he's a reserve world champion. We were just, I think, 3 points away from the saddle. If it wasn't for them halter classes.
This is in the average, the all-around.
The all-around.
Yeah, the all-around. Yeah.
Yeah. If we could figure out that showmanship and that confirmation class, then.
Yeah.
But it took time. It took some hours just at that show, and he wasn't. Looking back, was he really ready for that show? No. But it gave us a baseline on what we needed to start doing with him, and how we were going to start getting him ready for next year. We knew leaving that show that he was going to leave us in the circles. We knew that we knew that he was going to the horse would watch himself in the jumbotron.
He did.
He would look up and watch himself in the jumbotron.
Yeah.
So we just knew that there were things that we had to go, and the only way we were going to accomplish that was to put him in show pens. We're going to have somebody on the PA. We're going to have a few people walking around the bleachers, and we're going to have to put our hand down and hold him accountable.
Because when you go down that road of showing them for so long, letting them be at, say, 60%, it takes a lot to get. I mean, you can't go and school them twice. If it's taken 20 shows to create that, 30 shows, whatever it is, it's really hard to get it fixed in even a few. You know, it's really, really tough. And you know, today we went in there fairly fresh. And I like to get to a place, if the arena's open and has part of the pattern set up, it's nice to lope your horses, warm them up lightly, and then go in there and say, what do I have? Because that'll be at their worst.
And that's another thing that's a lot different, and I think it works better. Everyone has their opinion. But I would go and we would set up the trail pattern at home. I mean, we would set it up identical to what close as we could make it at home to what the pen was going to offer whenever we got there. And we just repeat. And the next thing you know, your horse is, I know this. I know how to work this gate. You don't need to help me work this gate. I got this. I don't need you to tell me when to lope off. I got this.
Or you've picked on them over an obstacle so much, now they want to kind of avoid it.
Well, we were talking earlier about the gate. You know, Teeny, I used to pick on her so much at the gate, trying to get her to straighten her body up and stand up and side pass over there to where you didn't have to reach and lean, to where I'd pick on her so much she'd just slam you into the gate. She'd just step you over in there and run your knee into it. But so now I think I went through the trail pattern one time on each horse. But I done the obstacles multiple times. And I may do them backwards. I may do them sideways. Halfway.
Go from one to the other. And it's very hard to get people to think like that.
And so
they want the program.
Yeah.
And do the program.
And so breaking it down in pieces seems to make the horse wait for you more, makes them want to, they're just more compliant. You know, they're like, oh, we stepped into the box, we're going to turn around. Well, having that automatic anticipation a lot of times will get you a log clinked, as opposed to you stepping into that box and being able to look at where you want to go. Oh, I'm too close, so I need to move that hip over to clear a hole for the front end to get into that box. Or, but when they start anticipating, all of a sudden your time goes away. Doing it in sections, you know, okay, we're going to have to do figure eights around those stumps, you know, and go work on that. And then, go walk the bridge. Well, that's nowhere. Those are 3 obstacles apart in the pattern. And so that seems to be to keep the horse thinking and staying with you and under your hand.
Staying with you, that's a big thing. If they're brave and stay with you, you can do a lot.
Yes.
You can do a lot. And then after a while, they will get anticipation because that's part of the effort they're putting forth, trying to help.
Yeah.
No different than if a cow horse took a hold of a cow.
Yeah.
You know, which we want them to do. But in the reining, that same mentality we don't like so well. We round the corner for a rundown, they say, got it.
Yeah.
And they run off. You know?
It's kind of like, I don't know when the last time, and this is something I used to do all the time. I don't know the last time I changed leads in the middle of the pen.
Yeah.
You know, for the reining pattern, you know, that but my horses are at the point where their lead changes. I don't
work on it.
I don't work on it too much but when I did have to work on it a lot, we'd do it at the halfway around the circle, or we'd do it on a diagonal line, or it was definitely not going to be in the center of the arena
all the time. Yeah. And if you do it in the center of the arena, I think there needs to be some kind of a reward for it, or a mix-up. Maybe you change into the counter, or something to where there again we're keeping them with us. There's a lot of stuff happens at the center, the spins, and
I even find myself, and I don't practice a lot of the reining patterns because reining patterns, some circles to the left, some circles to the right, some spins, some stops, and backup rollbacks, and so you practice those as individual pieces. But even if I am kind of working through a reining pattern, I've really got to where I like to just break it down to a simple.
Yeah.
Because I fought a long time with Teeny because of over asking. I just had a rocket ship going out the other side of a lead change.
You go to ask and they just speed up and run off.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, but I've got a 10.5 boot coming at you with a little iron, and I don't know how to. I didn't control it well, and
and that's smart. How to execute patterns and how to prepare for them. That's a big deal with people.
And you know, if you are going to get to that point to where you are competitive and you are going to win a class here and there, you've got to stay on pattern.
Mm-hmm. It's important.
That's real important.
Oh, goodness.
There's nothing like going out and scoring a 73 with an OP beside it.
Yeah, that's really handy.
That helps out a lot.
Yeah, or the tail was up.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. You have some kind of illegal tack or something that you didn't catch. But, well, it's been good sitting down here hearing your story. We're going to show this evening. I think we show what's it start at 4:00 this evening. We're at St. Louis at the NEC at the RHA show up here, and we're gonna. I think the reining starts at 4:00 this afternoon, and I think we're all up early, fortunately, and we're not the 100th to go.
Yeah, I think I'm go out number 2 or number 3.
And I'll run out on one, I think, around number 6-ish. But, well, it's been good. I hope some people got some takeaways from it. Some amateurs, non-pros, or anybody out here in the industry find some value in it and some maybe tips or tactics that might help them a little bit along the way. Because it's just a journey for all of us, and I think we can learn a lot from others. And I think anytime we can gain some of our time that we spend, because we can't get time back, by some information someone can give us, I think it's a good asset to have. And
I would much rather learn from your mistakes than my own.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and that's the way I've asked people in the past, other trainers, I said, if they're successful or not successful, there's something I can take away from them. And I'm saying, okay, what would you do different? Well, then I'll evaluate that and see if it principally aligns with what I want to do. And I said, well, you know what? Let's just learn from them. I don't have to go pee on the fence. They said, hey, it's electric, it's going to hurt, but you can do it if you want. And some people do. They have to do it over and over again. And I don't want to be that. I want to continue to get better. But anyway, well, it was good talking to you, and I hope we have a good show. We're here for 3 more days.
Yeah, I think I got my reservations through Monday.
Oh, through Monday? Yeah. You've planned for a late night Sunday then?
That's the rumor.
Yeah. I think Carrie even took off Monday, and I might have to get back Sunday night. My boss might fire me. I don't know.
I know where my horses are. So.
Yeah, you do. All right, well, we'll get off here, and it's been good visiting with you, and thanks for everybody tuning in. If you have any questions or comments or anything, feel free to find any of your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys are listening to us at. You guys can send us a comment, and there's an email link and all that also. And you can check us out also on Instagram and on Facebook on Changing Eyes. And reach out. Any topics you guys want to hear or any comments you have on the conversation, just feel free to reach out. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.